That's what she told the police. That's what she shouted in front of all my neighbors. I had just pulled in, turned off the engine, when she ran toward me, her finger pointed, her voice shaking with rage. "You stole it! You thief!" The sirens came fast. The officers stepped out, eyes scanning me, scanning the car, and in that frozen moment, I knew. This wasn't about a car at all. It was something darker, something much more dangerous. And what happened next shocked the entire neighborhood. Welcome to HOA Chaos, the place where we uncover the wildest, strangest, and most unbelievable scandals hiding behind perfect lawns and white fences. My name is Michael. I'm 34 years old, living in a quiet neighborhood just outside Dallas, Texas. I work in finance. I thought I was buying peace and safety when I moved here, but instead, I found myself trapped in a game of rules, fines, and power plays. And this story is how one neighbor turned my driveway into a battlefield. I still remember the day it all started. The sun was bright, the air was heavy with summer heat, and I had just parked my new car in the driveway. It was a simple moment, nothing special, nothing dramatic. I turned the key. The engine went silent, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a little proud. I had worked hard, saved money, and finally bought something for myself. But peace doesn't last long in my neighborhood, not with Karen living across the street. She was already outside, standing by her mailbox like a guard on duty, her arms crossed, lips tight, eyes locked on me. It was like she had been waiting, just waiting, for me to come home. I opened the door and stepped out. And that's when I heard it. Her heels clicking on the pavement, fast, sharp, like nails on a chalkboard. "You stole it," she screamed. Her voice cracked, but it carried across the whole cul-de-sac. I froze. "Excuse me?" I asked. "This car, you stole it from me." I laughed for a second, thinking maybe this was a joke, but she wasn't laughing. Her face was red, her eyes wide. And then I saw it, the phone in her hand. 911 already on the screen. Within minutes, the sirens came. 2 police cars pulled up fast. Neighbors came out onto their porches, some holding their phones, some just shaking their heads. And there I was, standing in my own driveway, accused of stealing the very car I had just bought. The officers stepped out calm, but their eyes were sharp. Karen ran to them, waving her arms. "That's my car. That man stole it. Arrest him now." They looked at me. I raised my hand slowly. "Officers, this is my car. I can prove it." Karen's voice cut through mine. "No, he forged the papers. He tricked the dealer. That car was supposed to be mine." I almost laughed again. But something in her eyes stopped me. This wasn't just pettiness. This was obsession. And obsession is dangerous. The officers told her to calm down. She didn't. She screamed louder, every word sharper than the last. And all the while, the neighbors watched like it was some twisted reality show. I pulled out my papers, the title, the insurance, the receipt. I held them out, steady, my voice low but clear. "This car belongs to me." The officers checked. They nodded. It was obvious. The proof was there. But Karen wasn't done. She pushed forward, pointing her finger at me, at the car, at the officers themselves. "He bribed them. He's lying. He doesn't belong in this neighborhood." That's when it hit me. This wasn't about the car. It wasn't even about me. It was about control. Karen wanted to control everything and everyone. And when she couldn't, she lost her mind. The officers finally warned her. One more false claim, and she'd face charges. Her lips trembled. Her eyes darted around. And then she fell silent. But the silence wasn't peace. It was a storm waiting to return. The police turned to me. "Sorry about this, sir. We had to respond." I nodded. I understand. But inside, I didn't understand. How could someone hate me this much for owning a car, for parking in my own driveway? What kind of person does that? As the officers drove away, and the neighbors slipped back inside their homes, Karen stood there, her arms still crossed, her eyes burning into me. She whispered something under her breath. I couldn't hear it, but I felt it. And in that moment, I knew this was only the beginning, because in neighborhoods like mine, with perfect lawns and perfect rules, it's never really about what it seems. It's about power, it's about fear, and it's about the games people play when no one is watching. But here's the thing. Everyone was watching that day. And now, everyone was waiting to see what would happen next that night. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the scene in my head. Karen's face, the way she screamed, the way the police stared at me, the whole neighborhood watching like it was entertainment. It didn't feel real. It felt like a movie I couldn't escape from. I told myself it was over. The police had warned her. I had shown proof. It was done. But deep inside, I knew it wasn't. People like Karen don't back down, they double down. And the very next morning, she proved me right. I woke up early, coffee in hand. I opened the blinds, and there she was, standing in her yard, arms crossed, staring at my driveway, like a hawk guarding its prey. I ignored her. I had work to do, calls to make, papers to sign. I tried to carry on with my day, but then came the letter, slipped under my door, sealed with the HOA logo. I opened it slowly, my stomach already tight. Inside was a violation notice, according to Karen and the board. My car was illegally parked in my own driveway. I read it twice, maybe 3 times. How could that even be possible? It was my house, my property, my car. But the letter was clear. If I didn't remove the vehicle immediately, I would face fines, heavy fines. I laughed. But it wasn't funny. It was war. And Karen had just fired the first official shot. I marched outside, the letter in my hand. "Care to explain this?" I shouted. She smirked. "It's against the bylaws. Cars must be in garages. Driveways are for guests only." I shook my head. "That's not true. I read the bylaws." She stepped closer. "Well, maybe you read them wrong. Maybe you don't belong here at all." Her words cut deeper than I expected. It wasn't just about rules. It was about pushing me out, making me feel like I didn't belong. And the worst part, she wasn't alone. By evening, 3 more neighbors had walked past, glancing at my car, whispering to each other. One of them even muttered loud enough for me to hear, "Rule breaker." It was spreading. Karen's poison, her lies, her story. She was turning the neighborhood against me. The next week was hell, every day. Another letter. Another fine trash bins too close to the curb. Grass too long by half an inch. Mailbox not polished enough. Each letter signed by the HOA. But I knew whose hands were behind it. Karen's fingerprints were all over every single one. And then came the note, not official, not from the HOA, just a piece of paper taped to my front door. It said only 2 words, written in red marker, "Get out." I felt my blood run cold. This wasn't about rules anymore. This was personal, and it was escalating fast. I decided to fight back. I dug out the bylaws, read them line by line. I highlighted sections, printed copies, prepared my defense, and at the next HOA meeting, I showed up ready. The room was full, neighbors sitting in neat rows. Karen at the front like a queen on her throne. She saw me walk in, and her smile tightened. The president banged the gavel. "Any issues to discuss tonight?" Karen raised her hand instantly. "Yes." "Hi, Ia's car." All eyes turned to me. I stood up slowly, cleared my throat, and laid the papers on the table. According to Section 14, Article 3, homeowners are allowed to park personal vehicles in their driveways, as long as the vehicle is registered and operable. The room went quiet. Karen's face went pale. I continued. "My car is registered, insured, and fully operable. Therefore, no violation exists." Whispers filled the room. Neighbors looking at the papers, nodding. The president frowned. "It seems he's correct." Karen jumped up. "He's twisting the rules. He's making us all look foolish." Her voice cracked again, just like it had that first day. But this time, fewer people were nodding with her. Some even rolled their eyes. The president finally spoke. "This matter is closed." And just like that, I won. Or at least, I thought I had. Because the thing about people like Karen, they don't lose gracefully. They don't let go. They come back harder, that night. I heard noises outside. I opened the blinds, and there she was again, standing at the edge of my driveway, staring at my car, her phone raised, taking pictures, flash after flash in the dark, like some kind of paparazzi stalker. I stepped outside. "Karen, go home." She didn't answer. She just kept snapping pictures. Then she whispered, "You'll slip up, and when you do, I'll be ready." I slammed the door, my hands shaking. This wasn't just HOA drama anymore. This was harassment, obsession, maybe even madness. Days passed, each one heavier than the last. She followed me on walks. She reported me for noise violations when I mowed the lawn. She even tried to block my mail by filing false complaints. Everywhere I turned, she was there, watching, waiting, plotting. And then came the night that changed everything. I had just returned from work, tired, ready to rest. I pulled into the driveway, headlights cutting through the dark, and that's when I saw it, spray paint, across my garage door. One word, huge, in black letters. Thief. My chest tightened. I stepped out slowly, staring at the mess. My hands shook as I touched the paint, still wet, still dripping. It couldn't have been more than an hour old. I looked across the street, and there she was, Karen, standing in her window, watching me, her face half hidden by the curtain, her lips curled into the faintest smile. I called the police. They came, took pictures, filed a report, but they didn't arrest anyone. No proof, no cameras, just suspicion. And that's when I realized she was winning. Not with truth, not with rules, but with fear. Because every time I walked outside now, every time I parked my car, I felt it. The eyes of the neighborhood on me. The whispers behind my back. The doubt that maybe, just maybe, I really didn't belong here. But I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. If she wanted a war, then a war is what she would get. I started keeping records, every note, every fine. Every time she showed up on my property, I logged it all. I bought cameras, installed them around the house. I wasn't just going to defend myself, I was going to expose her. And deep inside, I wanted justice. I wanted her to feel the same fear she had planted in me. I wanted the neighborhood to see who she really was, because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everyone who lived here, everyone who had been bullied, fined, harassed by the HOA queen. And I promised myself, one way or another, the truth would come out. The paint stayed on my garage for 3 days. Not because I was lazy, not because I didn't care, but because I wanted the whole neighborhood to see it. Every time a car passed by, every time a neighbor walked their dog, they slowed down, stared at the black letters. Thief, sprayed across my house like a scar, and every time I saw Karen peeking through her blinds, her curtain would twitch, her eyes flashing with victory. I filed the report. The police shrugged. No cameras, no proof, so I left. The word there. Because sometimes, silence speaks louder than any defense, but it burned me inside, every morning, leaving for work. I felt my chest tighten. Every night, coming home, I saw that ugly word staring at me. It was like Karen had branded me in my own neighborhood. Finally, on the 4th day, I painted over it, fresh coat of white, clean and new. But even as the paint dried, I knew the battle wasn't over. It was just beginning, because people like Karen, they never stop. A week later, another letter from the HOA. This time, it wasn't about my car, it was about my lawn. Grass exceeding regulation height, $100 fine. I walked outside with a ruler, measured every blade, perfectly within limits, but still, the fine was approved. I appealed, they denied. Another week. Another violation. Improper trash bin placement. $75 fine. My bin was exactly where it should be, right at the curb. Lid closed. But Karen had taken pictures. Pictures that twisted the truth. One showed my bin leaning slightly to the left. Another caught the lid half open during pickup, and just like that, the board sided with her again. It wasn't about rules anymore. It was about power, and she was using the HOA as her weapon. I started to wonder, how far would she go? How much damage could she cause? And how much longer could I take it? The breaking point came one Friday evening. I came home late, tired, ready to collapse into bed. But as I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something strange. My car. The new one Karen claimed was hers. It was covered in sticky notes, bright yellow squares, hundreds of them, each one scribbled with the same word. Thief. Over and over and over again, I ripped them off one by one, my hands shaking, my throat dry. The neighbors watched again, some recording, some whispering, and across the street, there she was, standing tall, arms crossed, smiling that same cold smile. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to hide anymore. I wasn't going to let her win. I dug deeper into the bylaws, page after page, line after line, and then I found. And a section most people overlooked, but it was there. It said every complaint filed had to be backed by photographic evidence and signed by at least 2 board members, but all my fines, every single one, had only Karen's name attached. It was a violation of their own rules. She wasn't following the system. She was abusing it. I gathered every letter, every fine, every note. I put them in a binder, and I brought them to the next HOA meeting. The room was full again. Karen sat at the front, smug as ever. The president opened the floor. Karen stood. Yes, once again. His car, his lawn, his trash bins. I raised my hand. Before we continue, I'd like to present something. I set the binder on the table, opened it slowly, and one by one, I laid out the letters. Each of these fines was issued against me, each one signed by Karen alone. According to Section 9, Article 7 of the bylaws, that makes every one of them invalid. The room fell silent. Neighbors leaned forward, reading the words. The president frowned. Karen's smile cracked. I continued. And if the board allows one member to abuse power like this, then the entire HOA becomes a joke. Whispers spread, people nodding, murmurs of agreement. One neighbor even stood. He's right. She's been targeting him. And maybe others too. Karen jumped up. He's lying. He's twisting the rules again. Her voice shrill, desperate. But this time, no one clapped for her. No one backed her up. The president finally spoke. These fines will be dismissed. And moving forward, all complaints must go through the full board. Karen's face turned red. Her fists clenched. She stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. For the first time, I felt like I had won. For the first time, the neighborhood saw her for what she really was. But victories in battles like this, they don't last long that night. At 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound, a soft scrape outside. In my window, I looked out and saw a shadow by my driveway. Someone crouched near my car. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and stepped outside slowly. The figure froze, then darted away. But not before the light caught her face. It was Karen. I walked to the car. On the hood, scratched deep into the paint, was a single word: liar. My hands trembled as I held the phone. I had proof now, clear proof. A video of her on my property, vandalizing my car. But here's the thing. Proof is one thing, justice is another. Because even with video, even with evidence, the system moves slow. Police reports, court hearings, endless waiting, and all the while, she'd still be there, across the street, watching me, hunting me. So I had to decide, do I trust the system to handle her, or do I take matters into my own hands? Because in neighborhoods like this, with perfect lawns and smiling faces, sometimes the darkest battles are the ones fought behind closed doors. The video sat on my phone like a loaded weapon. Every time I opened the gallery, every time I saw her face in the glow of the nightlight, crouched by my car, scratching her anger into the hood, my blood boiled. I had proof, now, real proof, the kind no one could deny. But proof is only useful if you know how to use it. Part of me wanted to march straight across the street, shove the phone in her face, scream at her, ask her why. But another part of me knew that's what she wanted. She wanted me to break. She wanted me to snap in front of everyone so she could call the police again. And this time, make me look like the criminal, so I stayed quiet, at least on the surface. The next morning, I printed stills from the video. Her face, her hands on the car, the scratches fresh under the moonlight. I slid them into clear plastic sleeves and tucked them into my binder of evidence. The binder was growing heavy now, each page a reminder of how far she'd gone, and how far I was willing to go. At work, I could barely focus. Numbers blurred on the screen, every ring of the phone made me jump. All I could think about was the war waiting at home. And sure enough, when I pulled into the driveway that evening, there she was, standing on her porch, arms folded, that same smug smile. She didn't say a word this time. She didn't have to. Her silence was sharper than her screams. 2 days later, another letter from the HOA. Violation, unkempt landscaping, fine, $150. I almost laughed. I had mowed the lawn that morning, edges trimmed, hedges neat, but there it was in black and white. That's when the idea came to me. If Karen wanted to bury me in rules, I'd drown her in them instead. Revenge by compliance. I opened the bylaws again, line by line, word by word. Every rule about grass length, mailbox placement, even the angle of Christmas lights. And I decided, if they wanted me to follow every single one, then I would, but not just me. Everyone. I spent the next week walking the neighborhood, clipboard in hand, snapping pictures, making notes, mailbox too high, flag not regulation size, trash bin 2 inches over the curb, dozens of violations, and all of them signed, sealed, and delivered to the HOA with my name at the bottom at the next meeting. The room buzzed with tension. Karen sat stiff in her chair, glaring at me across the table. The president read the list. Multiple violations reported by Michael, with photo evidence attached. One by one, neighbors turned their heads, some frowned, some whispered, and for the first time, Karen wasn't the one pointing fingers, I was. By the end of the meeting, half the board was buried in paperwork, half the neighborhood had fines on their doorsteps, and Karen, she looked like she might explode. Afterward, she cornered me in the parking lot, her voice low, sharp as glass. You think this makes you smart? You think you can beat me at my own game? I leaned closer. No, Karen. I think I already did. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw clenched, and for the first time, she didn't have a comeback, but if I thought she would stop there. I was wrong. Dead wrong. The next week was chaos. Neighbors slammed doors when I walked by. One shouted at me across the street, "You're ruining everything." Another slipped a note under my door, "Snitch." Karen had flipped the script again. She told everyone I was abusing the system, that I was turning the HOA into a weapon, and maybe, in a way, she was right. But I didn't care, because the more they hated me, the more they saw her true colors, the more she screamed and shouted, the more they realized who started this war. Still, the pressure was crushing. I barely slept. Every creak of the floorboards made me think she was outside. Every shadow looked like her watching me through the blinds. Then one night, it happened again. I was in bed, half asleep, when I heard it, the faint crunch of footsteps on gravel. I grabbed my phone, heart pounding, and peeked through the curtain. There she was, in my driveway again. But this time, she wasn't alone. Another figure stood beside her, a man, tall, broad-shouldered, holding a flashlight. They whispered, pointed at my house, my cameras, my car. I hit record. My hands trembling, the beam of the flashlight cut across my yard, lingered on the window where I stood, and for a split second, I swear their eyes met mine. Then they turned and walked away into the night. The next morning I checked my footage. Karen and the mystery man. No vandalism this time, just whispers and shadows. But the fear it planted in me was worse than any spray paint or sticky note, because now, it wasn't just her, she had someone helping her. I called the police again, showed them the video. They shrugged. Suspicious behavior, but nothing criminal. Nothing criminal. Yet, that word echoed in my mind all day. Yet, because I knew, it was only a matter of time before Karen crossed another line, so I prepared. More cameras, motion lights, even a hidden recorder near the driveway. If she wanted war, I would be ready. But I couldn't shake the thought, how far was she willing to go? And how far was I willing to follow? That weekend, I decided to test here. I parked my car at the very edge of the driveway, half an inch over the sidewalk line. Not illegal, but close enough to tempt her, and sure enough, by morning, another letter appeared. Violation. Obstructing public walkway. Fine, $200. But this time, the letter wasn't typed. It wasn't official. It was handwritten, and at the bottom, in red ink, were 3 words: "You will pay." That's when I knew. This wasn't just an HOA war anymore. This was personal vengeance. And it was only getting darker. The letter with red ink sat on my kitchen table for hours. "You will pay." The words burned into my mind. Every time I tried to look away, I saw them again. It wasn't just a fine anymore. It was a threat. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. Karen wasn't just obsessed with rules. She was obsessed with me, but I couldn't prove it. Not yet. That night, I sat by the window with the lights off, watching, waiting. The street was quiet. Too quiet. Every shadow felt alive. Every creak of wood made my heart race. And just after midnight, I saw it. A flashlight beam swept across my driveway. Slow, deliberate. Then 2 figures appeared again. Karen and the same man I had seen before. They stood by my mailbox, whispering, pointing at my cameras, my garage, my car. This time, I hit record with 3 different angles. The hidden camera near the garage caught their faces clear as day. They circled the car once, then twice. The man knelt down, pulled something from his pocket. I couldn't see what it was, but when I checked the footage later, I realized he was holding a screwdriver. I ran outside before they could finish. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice shaking with anger. They froze, eyes wide. Then they bolted, sprinting into the night. I checked the car, the tires, the locks. Everything looked untouched, but the screwdriver told me all I needed to know. They weren't just here to scare me this time. They were here to destroy something. The next morning, I called the police again, showed them the video, the man with the tool in his hand. But once again, they shook their heads. No damage was done. We can't act until a crime is committed. No crime committed. Not yet. That word haunted me again. Yet I realized I couldn't rely on the police. If I wanted peace, I'd have to create it myself. So I doubled down. More cameras, motion-activated sirens. Every corner of my house became a fortress. And when I walked outside, I carried myself differently. Head high, eyes locked, ready for whatever came next. But Karen wasn't scared. In fact, she escalated. 3 days later, another violation appeared. This time not just in my mailbox, but posted on the HOA's public board for everyone to see. Michael's constant disregard for community standards has endangered the harmony of our neighborhood. Signed by Karen, and underlined twice in bold red ink. Neighbors walked past and stared at it like it was an announcement of war. Some nodded in agreement, others whispered nervously. And me. I felt the heat rise in my chest. That night I confronted her. She was watering her lawn when I walked across the street. "Take it down," I said flatly. She smiled without looking up. "Take what down?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about." She turned the hose off, tilted her head. "If you don't like it, maybe you should move." Her words hung in the air like poison, and for the first time, I felt rage boil over inside me. Not fear, not anxiety. Rage. I leaned in close, my voice low. "You think you run this place. But the truth is, you're the reason everyone here is miserable." Her smile cracked, her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I thought she might actually strike me, but instead she whispered, "You'll regret that." She turned, walked back into her house, and slammed the door shut. The following week was pure chaos. Fines poured in daily, trash bins, lawn edges, noise complaints at all hours. But here's the twist. They weren't signed by Karen anymore. They were signed by other board members. She had convinced them to join her. My fight was no longer against one person, it was against the entire HOA. But I had my binder, I had my videos, and I had something more powerful than all of it. The truth. So I planned my move. I scheduled a special hearing. The bylaws allowed it. Any homeowner could request one if they believed the board was acting unfairly. And when the date came, the room was full to the brim. Neighbors filled every chair, some curious, some angry, some secretly rooting for me. The president opened the floor. Karen was already smiling, ready to pounce, but before she could speak, I stood up and laid the binder on the table. "I have evidence," I said. "Months of harassment, false fines, vandalism, and threats." I played the videos one by one. Karen spray painting my garage, Karen scratching my car, Karen sneaking into my driveway with a stranger holding a screwdriver. Gasps filled the room. Neighbors leaned forward, eyes wide. The president looked stunned. Karen shot up from her chair. "He's lying. He edited those videos." But the room wasn't with her anymore. Not this time. One neighbor shouted, "I saw you out there that night, Karen." Another whispered loudly, "She's been doing this for years." The tide was turning for the first time. The power was shifting away from her. The president slammed the gavel. "This board will review this evidence immediately, and if true, Karen will be removed from her position." Karen's face turned pale. Her lips trembled. She tried to speak, but no words came. She grabbed her purse, stormed out of the room, her heels clicking like gunshots on the floor. And just like that, the queen had fallen, at least for the moment. But here's the thing about people like Karen. They don't accept defeat. They plot, they wait, they come back harder. That night, as I sat in my living room, binder still on the table, I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over. I looked out the window. Her blinds were closed, her house dark, but I knew she was in there, watching, waiting. Because in neighborhoods like mine, with perfect lawns and smiling faces, the war never really ends, it just goes underground. For a few days after the hearing, things were quiet, too quiet. Karen's blinds stayed closed. Her yard went untouched. Her car didn't move from the driveway, and the neighborhood buzzed with whispers. Some thought she had given up. Some thought she was embarrassed. But me, I knew better. Karen wasn't gone. She was waiting, because people like her don't disappear. They plot. They wait for the right moment to strike. I tried to enjoy the silence. I mowed the lawn without a complaint, parked my car without a fine, even walked my dog without hearing whispers behind my back. For the first time in months, life felt almost normal. But normal never lasts here. On the fifth night, I woke to the sound of glass breaking. I shot out of bed, heart pounding, and rushed to the window. My porch light flicked on from the motion sensor, and there she was, Karen, standing in my yard with a rock in her hand. The front window cracked, shards of glass on the ground. Before I could even grab my phone, she ran, her red robe flapping behind her in the dark, gone like a shadow. I called the police, showed them the broken glass. They wrote their report, nodded, then left with the same tired words, "We'll investigate." But I knew the truth. There would be no investigation. Not really, not until something worse happened. The next morning, another letter appeared in my mailbox. Not from the HOA, not official, just one line, written in black marker. "This isn't over." I crumpled it in my fist, my stomach churning with anger. She wasn't just trying to scare me anymore. She was making it clear. This was personal. That night, I decided I couldn't just sit back, so I set a trap. I turned off every light in the house, left my car parked in the driveway like bait, and waited in the dark with my cameras rolling. Hours passed. The clock ticked past midnight. The street was silent, empty, and Jude. When my eyes began to grow heavy, I saw it, a shadow creeping across the lawn. Slow, deliberate. Karen again. But she wasn't alone this time. The tall man was back, the same one with the screwdriver. Only now, he was carrying a gas can. My breath caught in my throat. They crouched near my car, whispering. Karen pointed at the hood. The man twisted the cap on the can. That's when I knew. They weren't just here to scare me this time. They were here to destroy everything. I burst out the front door, my voice exploding into the night. "Hey, I'm recording you!" They froze. The man dropped the can, fuel spilling onto the pavement. Karen screamed, "Run!" They bolted down the street, disappearing into the shadows. But the cameras caught everything, clear as day. By the time the police arrived, the car smelled of gasoline. My driveway was slick with fuel, and my hands shook as I showed them the footage. This time, they couldn't shrug it off. This wasn't harassment anymore. This was attempted arson. The officers promised charges would be filed, promised they'd come for her soon. But promises don't mean safety. not when she still lived across the street. For the next few days, I felt like I was walking on a minefield. Every creak of the floorboards, every knock at the door, every glance from a neighbor, it all felt like danger waiting to explode. And then the rumors started. One neighbor whispered that Karen was telling everyone I staged the video. Another said she was spreading stories that I was dangerous, that I was violent, that I was the real problem in the neighborhood. It was working. I saw it in the way people looked at me, the way some avoided eye contact, the way kids were pulled inside when I walked by. She was losing legally, but winning socially, twisting the story like only she could. The HOA tried to distance themselves. The president avoided me. The board members whispered, but never spoke direct. And I realized something that chilled me to the core, even with proof, even with video. Karen might still win, because the truth doesn't always matter in neighborhoods like this. Perception does. One night, as I sat in my living room surrounded by papers and evidence, I thought about leaving, selling the house, walking away, starting fresh somewhere else. But then I looked at the binder, at the photos, at the spray paint, the scratches, the gasoline stains on my driveway, and I realized something. If I walked away, she'd win, and she'd do it again to someone else. So I made a decision. I wasn't leaving, not until Karen was gone for good. The next HOA meeting was chaos. The board tried to keep order, but neighbors shouted from every corner. Some demanding Karen be banned from the community, others claiming I was exaggerating. The room split down the middle like a battlefield. I stood up, held the binder high, and spoke in a voice that shook, but didn't break. This is my home, and no one, not even Karen, is going to drive me out of it. I have proof of everything she's done, and if the HOA won't take action, then the courts will. The room went silent. Karen stood in the back, arms folded, her smile thin and cruel. She didn't say a word, not then, but her eyes told me everything. This war wasn't over, it was only changing shape. That night, I sat on my porch in the dark, binder beside me, and I asked myself the question I still can't answer. The night after that HOA meeting, I barely slept. Every sound outside made me flinch. Every flicker of light felt like a threat. The gasoline stain on my driveway was still fresh, still smelling faint in the air, and every time I looked across the street, I saw those blinds twitch. I knew she was in there, watching me. I told myself I was ready for whatever came next. But the truth? I was tired. Months of battles, letters, fines, vandalism, rumors. It had drained me. But at the same time, it had changed me. I wasn't the same quiet neighbor who just wanted peace. I was something else now. I was sharper, harder, and I wasn't going to lose. The breaking point came on. A Sunday afternoon, the neighborhood was buzzing, kids on bikes, families walking dogs, the smell of barbecue floating through the air, almost normal, almost perfect. And then Karen came storming out of her house, her face red, her eyes wild. She carried a stack of papers in her hands, waving them like weapons. She marched straight into the middle of the street and started shouting, "He's a liar, a fraud, a danger to all of us." Her voice cracked but carried. Neighbors stopped, stared, some whispered, others pulled out phones. I stepped out of my house, calmly, slowly, the binder in my hand again. "Karen," I said, my voice low, "you need to stop." She spun toward me. "You think you're smart? You think you can ruin me? These people don't see it yet, but I'll make them see. You're the enemy here." I held up my phone, tapped the screen. The video played loud for everyone to hear. Karen, in the night, crouched by my car, fuel spilling from the can, gasps echoed through the street. Karen froze, her face drained of color, her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The neighbors closed in, some shaking their heads, some shouting at her. One woman screamed, "You could have burned the whole street down." The man who had been with her, the tall one, appeared at her side, but now, with everyone watching. He didn't look like an accomplice. He looked ashamed. He shook his head, backed away from her, and muttered loud enough for all to hear, "I'm done with this. I'm done with you." Then he walked off, leaving her alone in the middle of the street. The president of the HOA finally stepped forward. "This is over, Karen. You're removed from the board. Permanently. And after this, the community will pursue legal action." Karen's hands shook. The papers fluttered from her grip. scattering on the pavement like broken feathers. She turned to me one last time, her eyes burning with something between hatred and despair. And then she ran, back into her house, slamming the door so hard it rattled the glass. The street was silent for a moment. Then whispers, then relief, and for the first time in months, the neighborhood looked at me differently, not as a stranger, not as a target, but as someone who had stood his ground. The police came later that evening. They took statements, collected evidence, and this time, finally, they acted. Karen was charged with harassment, vandalism, and attempted arson. Her car was gone by the next week, her windows dark, her house silent. It was over. At least, that's what I told myself. But here's the strange thing about endings. They don't always feel final. Even after she was gone. Even after the house went up for sale. I still felt her shadow in the neighborhood. Every time I pulled into my driveway, every time I walked past her empty porch, I could still hear her voice in the back of my mind. You'll regret this. And sometimes, late at night, when the street is quiet, I swear I still see her face in the window across the street. Even though the curtains are closed, even though the house is empty, maybe it's just my imagination, maybe it's trauma that won't fade, or maybe, just maybe, some people never really leave. Either way, I know this much. I survived Karen, and not everyone in this neighborhood can say the same, because behind the perfect lawns, and the fresh paint, and the smiling faces, this place hides darkness, and sometimes, the scariest battles aren't fought in courtrooms or police stations. They're fought right outside your own front door, with neighbors who will smile at you in the morning and try to ruin your life by night. So let me leave you with this. If your worst enemy lived across the street, and you finally had the power to end them, would you stop once they were gone, or would you always look over your shoulder, waiting for the day they come back?